Welcome to the Teaching You to Fish podcast, financial literacy for the rest of us. My name is Carl Fish, and I'm the host of this podcast. This is episode 2, the basic equation of personal finance. I love math. I taught teenagers mathematics for my entire adult life, but I'm going to try to keep the math in this series to a minimum. It's not that I think you can't understand it. People aren't bad at math. They're often just bad at doing math class in school. It's that it's too easy to get distracted by the math and miss the forest for the trees. But there's one basic equation that is important enough to include. Income minus expenses equals savings plus investments. That equation really defines the parameters for every financial topic. You start with your income, how much you make from your job or jobs, and any other sources of income you might have. Then you subtract off your expenses, what you spend. Whatever is left, and it's critical that there is something left, you can then decide to divide up between savings, money you might need in the relatively short term, and investments, money you won't need in the short term and therefore want to invest so it'll grow over time. This is typically the point where we would talk about the importance of a budget. I'm not going to do that. If you want to learn more about budgets, there are lots of books and websites that will help you. And for some folks, that might even be helpful. But in my experience, focusing on making a budget is an approach that isn't very helpful for most people. The way most people make budgets is reactive. They let their current circumstances define their budget and then point to the realities of the budget as the reason they can't get ahead. For most people, I think it's more helpful to be proactive, to recognize the realities. You do have to eat, but to design the life you want to lead, the good life, however you define that, instead of being restricted by the assumed realities of your current circumstances. So I'm not going to specifically talk about budgets. Instead, I'll focus on the 4 components of that equation: income, expenses, savings, and investments. Income is how much you make, typically from your job or jobs, but some people have other sources of income as well. Obviously, the larger your income is, the more money you have to work with. So if you have some ways to increase that income without negatively affecting your lifestyle, the good life, however you define that, do that. This can include doing things at your current job to increase your income, like taking on more responsibility, working more hours or a different shift, or increasing your skills in a way that makes you more valuable. It could also include other ways of making income, often referred to as side hustles, things you do outside your regular job to earn extra income. It's really important if you decide to take on any side hustles that you only take on those that provide some extra income but don't negatively affect the life you want to live. And ultimately, it will be passive income, income you make from your investments that will allow you to retire. Expenses is what you spend your money on, and this is the component that you typically have the most control over. This will require the most thinking and work on your part to align your expenses with the life you want to live. Savings is the money you have set aside for possible short-term use. It's money that you don't need to live on day to day or week to week, but that is available either for some expense you know is coming up, maybe holiday presents you are planning on buying, or perhaps you know you'll be buying a new car or a new computer in the next year, or as a rainy day fund. Your water heater needs service or your car needs to be repaired. Investments is the money you have set aside for the long term, and next to expenses is the component you'll want to do the most thinking about. Some people have trouble distinguishing between savings and investments. It's really the factor of time and purpose that distinguish them. Savings are short-term, and their purpose is much more limited. Investments are long-term. We're going to say money you don't plan on spending for at least 5 years, and hopefully many more. And the purpose is typically, although not always, broader. So let's look at a chart that will give you a brief tease of what's possible if you are more intentional with your financial decisions and your financial life. Please note this is not necessarily saying what is desirable for you. Everyone needs to figure that out for themselves, aligning your spending with your values and your goals. It simply looks at the math to give you the big picture. This is from the blog post, The Shockingly Simple Math Behind Early Retirement by Mr. Money Mustache. While this is definitely a simplification, it turns out that your time to reach retirement ultimately depends on only one factor, your savings rate. The following table assumes you are starting with $0 in your investment portfolio, you earn a 5% return on investment after inflation, and they use a 4% safe withdrawal rate. It's important to note that this is not factoring in any Social Security or pension you may receive, and those are both very important. But it nicely illustrates the relationship between your saving rate and your spending rate, and at what point you can become financially independent. Meaning, you are able to continue to live the life you want to live by spending from your accumulated savings and investments, as opposed to having to continue to earn income via your job. While the blog post focuses on early retirement, I find it more helpful to think about reaching financial independence, which could include retirement, but may not. We're now going to do an exercise to calculate how many more years you have until financial independence. Go to this link or click on it if you're on the slides for the When Can I Retire calculator. You're going to want to enter 3 numbers, and it's important that you enter numbers that are as accurate as possible. You can choose to do this for yourself individually, or if you have a partner, for the both of you combined, whichever is the most helpful to you. Under current annual income, this is your total gross annual income before any deductions for insurance, taxes, or anything else. Note that this is not your AGI or taxable income from your tax return, but your gross income from your job or jobs, interest on your bank accounts, and any other regular income you receive each year that you either spend or save. I'm going to put in $80,000. Next, you can choose to either enter current annual savings or current annual expenses. For almost everyone, it'll be much easier to figure out your current annual savings, so that's what I would recommend you enter. This should be the total of all the savings, including anything that goes into investments, over the course of the year. So that includes additions to your savings and money market accounts, additions to retirement accounts like IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, and 457bs, and additions to taxable brokerage accounts. It does not include any earnings, interest, dividends, appreciation that have happened during the year inside of those accounts, just the amounts you have added to them from your current earned income. For the purposes of this exercise, do not include any contributions to Social Security or your pension. This activity will determine how many years until you retire without taking those into consideration. Once you've completed the activity, then you can choose to make adjustments in a variety of ways based on that eventual stream of income. I'm going to enter in $10,000 of annual savings. Now, under current portfolio value, you want to enter the current value of all of your investment accounts that are designated for retirement. This would include things like IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, 457bs, and even taxable brokerage accounts if those are designated for retirement. This does not include anything in a savings or money market account, or anything set aside for purchases prior to retirement. For example, money set aside for a big vacation, or for a new car, or for a child's college education. I'm going to enter in $20,000. Once you've entered in those 3 numbers, click the button that says Crunch the Numbers. It will then automatically calculate your savings rate and your current annual expenses. At this point, some folks are tempted to manually change the current annual expense number. Don't. It's accurate if you've correctly entered your gross income and savings amounts. Note that by default, this calculator assumes a 6% annual return on investment after inflation and a 4% safe withdrawal rate, although you can change those if you want under the Show More Options button. The graph that is then displayed shows how many more years from now you'd have to work given your current portfolio value and your current savings rate. On the example I've entered in, it shows that it would take 40.6 more years with a savings rate of 12% and a current portfolio value of $20,000. If you scroll down, the table then gives you more granular information as well. I suggest you take this seriously, but not too seriously. This calculator is definitely a simplistic and blunt instrument and does not factor in any eventual Social Security or pension income. And this is just a snapshot in time. Having said that, this is still a reasonably directionally accurate projection of how much longer you would have to work to reach financial independence, given your current savings rate and current spending. Some folks will want to rationalize what they are seeing by thinking things like, well, but my income will increase in the future. Or sometimes, well, once the kids leave the house, we'll save a lot more. Or something similar. And while those things may be true, the key to this math is your savings rate as a percentage of your income. And those things tend to stay fairly constant over time, unless you make an intentional effort to change them. Even as your income goes up and the kids leave the house, people end up adjusting and typically spend about the same percentage as they were before. And even though it is not factoring in Social Security or a pension, which can shorten the number of years until you are financially independent, those only kick in once you reach the age where you're eligible to receive one or both of them. Full retirement age for Social Security is currently 67, and for pensions it varies dramatically based on your pension plan and your membership date. But for most younger folks, it's going to be sometime in your 60s. If you're following my suggestion from the first episode of taking notes in a document somewhere, take a screenshot of your calculator results and then reflect on these questions. Did this surprise you? Does this motivate you in any way? Do you think you will use this information to help make financial decisions? If you're comfortable sharing your reflection, there are several ways to do that. If you're watching or listening to this on Spotify or YouTube, then you can leave your thoughts and/or your feedback and questions in the comments. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, there's no built-in way to leave comments, but you can always reach out to me directly on social media or via email. I'm Carl Fish on Blue Sky, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, or you can email me directly at carlfish@gmail.com. Again, don't read too much into these results, as this is just the starting point to exploring your path to financial independence. As the podcast series continues, we'll explore changes that can dramatically impact your basic equation of personal finance. Our next episode will discuss aligning your spending with your values and goals, your savings rate, and will allow you to work through an exercise that demonstrates how seemingly small changes in spending can grow to huge amounts over time due to the power of compound interest.